Well, let's crack on with this. This is Cadmium Red Light, this is Cadmium Yellow Medium, and this is Phthalo Blue or Primary Blue. So as you see, two of my colors are not primary and my white is right here. So that is the painting I did out there on the field at Lullingstone Castle. Now, the kind of colors that I have here, you will see that these are very, very dark. It does have a slightly purpley hue to it, but it's not, if I mix in a little bit of the white, but it's very lame, tame. It's not really a proper violet. And the mixture of this blue and cadmium red is always, this is how you almost, this is an almost black color. Very, very dark. You always need to mix more yellow than red. And that's my orange. I think I'm going to be very happy with that. And my greens are going to be gloriously nice and warm and sunlit because of the cadmium yellow in them. So that is a very summery type of a green. If it's too dark or too strong, you can actually lighten it up and create some like a gorgeous range of greens just by adding a bit of the white to it. Okay, so you can lighten it all up. Okay, so I'm going to have a bit of a summery sky here. Getting rid of my white. You know, the chief enemy is white. It's not, okay, it's not the enemy, but basically you just want to have a nice base coat that will allow you to add
orange there.
The orange that I mixed up,
Right.
And then I'm going back for just a little bit more of the yellow because it's a sunlit scene, and because the poppies themselves, the stems and the leaves, those serrated tiny leaves of the poppies are fairly cool colored. So I want to have a nice warm background to start with. So usually I go around that way with, through the warm colors. Yeah. But this time I'm going to finish on the red, which is the last color. So I started with the orange as the background. Wow. I will be adding yellows, greens, turquoises, some of the blue. I will be adding some of the darker colors here, and then the poppies will be the very last thing I paint. So for a long time, a poppy field painting has no poppies in it because you are preparing everything else to really enhance, and you are preparing the field for the poppies. Light greens. I might pick up a little bit of the blue there to make it, yeah, there you go. And it's going to be, it has to be an asymmetrical sort of a field. So if I'm doing that.
It's blue, that one. Is it supposed to be green?
It's green and a little bit on the bluey side right there. Okay. That is turquoisey. You see, it looks blue simply because your eyes are your eyes comparing it to the orange behind. Okay. And that's the trick of the Impressionists, that they basically trick your eyes. They tickle you. They tickle your senses with these colors. And when you add a green on top of an orange, it will very likely, it will look a lot more blue than it really is. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And this is the underpainting, so you don't worry about a lot of the details here, please. Don't worry about them. I'm adding still, you know, with that area of the sponge, I'm just pinching it together, so I'm getting rid of any of the sharp lines there. And each time I lift my sponge, I look back at my original inspiration. Which can be either the field itself or the study that I made on the field. So here I have that. Yeah, I think the sun is coming from there. So these clumps of trees will be a lot more yellowy and sunlit and lighter on this side. And they will have the shadow underneath as well as on the right-hand side. Okay. Okay, and now running towards us, I'm trying to get a little bit of a green going here. And I'm already establishing a few of these lines. You see the messy, I'm drawing essentially using my sponge. I want to also run some of the sides together, so I don't want to lose the viewer with any very sharp contrast, sharp lines, running off and leading their eyes off the canvas towards the edge. So make sure that as if there was a built-in passepartout, a built-in mount around the edges, make sure that you are not overdoing, or if there are any strong contrasts there, then try to sort of get rid of them and make those run together. Okay, and now I think as far as my blue is concerned, okay, so I've done my greens, and now it's time to get on to my darker colors here. So I will be mixing again this dark violet, which is almost black. And I'm adding it to just the tree line that's closest to me. Maybe I might add just a little bit in the very back. But I don't want to overdo it, because I want things, as they are further away from me, I want them to disappear. I want people to imagine that those areas are further away from me. And again, don't be very concerned about details, because this is our underpainting. Yeah, okay. So I would say this is my base composition is done. I could add a bit of the red. Now, if your sponge, once you see, so far I have been just using the one edge of the sponge. If you want to move on to a clean sponge, then you just turn it around in your hand and you can pick up some of the red. And this is going to be just great fun. You can also bring it down. I'm pulling it down with the sponge like this. And I'm not pulling it down everywhere. I'm also very happy to have this slightly crooked line, so it's not dead straight, not just level. It's actually going up a little bit, then that is coming down, then that's coming down. So all of it is, you see that even the curve of this hill coming down is different from that hill coming down. It has to be different. Make sure that you have different size clusters of trees, different shapes slightly, because you are using a particular set of colors to signify trees. These are color coded to be perceived as trees, and three so 3 is always a good color in composition. So if you have a big cluster of trees, then you have a smaller, more flat one on the other side of the field that's further away. And then you have one on top of the hill that sort of peters out as it comes down. It's not just the poppies, but if you have this nice big sea of red there, then you can place other colors on top. And you can pick up with that sponge, you can, place a few strategic poppies right there. So just dab them around in the front. This is my underpainting. This is how far I go when I just want to see if the composition works. I made all these design decisions that you see here on this paper here. I made all these decisions back in the field, and that's why I can paint very quickly. The more you plan, the easier your job will be when you start painting. Now what I want to do is create a little bit of a light pink, and I'm talking about very, very light, maybe with a bit of the yellow in there, so it's not a foreign color completely compared to what I have there. And as you start painting with the knife, you will be using a lot more color. And what I want to do is I want to start painting So I'm mixing a new batch with each one of these. Each time I go and I just want to make sure that there's a bit of a light there. And the pink or the red of the poppies, the same pigment, is coming back in a certain way in the background there. It is a very gentle way, and I'm even painting over the trees there, because you see what happens when you have a little bit of that. Let me just lift it up. When you have something like that, so that looks like the sky is peeking through the bushes or the trees there. So don't fear painting over what you have painted until now. If you want to create a strong, sharp line, then you can do that with the knife. And there's one more thing I want to do. I want to pick up the same color, which is a little bit of a lighter color, and start adding it just in a few places. I picked up the color of the sky there, and then I laid it at the very edge of the field on the back there. So it has to come back, the same color there. It has to come back. And now I'm picking up more of the same, and I'm just adding it in the front in a very patchy way. Look at that, these small, the same color. You see that's a big block of one color. Then there are the lines there, and these are the smaller patterns here with the exact same color. Working from color to color, you have to make sure that there is a nice distribution and then a nice range of the kind of marks you create. So now, moving on to my yellow. I'm just gonna pick up my strong yellow here, and you see this area here that I haven't painted over? I want to add some nice sunlit lovely yellow there. Also I'm gonna do the same thing here. So all of it, and if you look at the way I'm establishing this, so that is now the sunlit hillside. And I can also take the same color, the same yellow, and start peppering it right here in between my poppies. Again, the idea is to have the same color distributed fairly evenly. Now, when it comes to the yellow, we already have that nice initial wash of the sky and behind everything else with that orange. So that yellow in the sky peeking through the pink counts as one type of a yellow because it's the same pigment. And this is the beauty of working with the exact same colors around the whole canvas. And then, you know, if you want to, if you really have to, then you can always go and use a different set of those colors the next time around. Now I'm going to pick up my yellowy green, add a bit of my white to it. So this is the color that I mixed. The same greeny yellow, almost the same as the ones there, and I think I'm going to add it right there. So basically what I need to do is paint over everything I have painted and make sure I have a nice heavily pasted palette knife version of what of the underpainting that I have there. Having a bit of the bluey, turquoisey color, I can paint some of those, some of the leaves, you know, the way they are reflecting some of the sky. I'm trying to get rid of any strong contrast in the corner here because I don't want people to get lost there. I have added yellow, so it's a very yellowy green, and now I'm adding a bit of the white to make it lighter because this will be the sunlit part of the trees, and I'm just very gently dabbing them on and making sure it's there for everybody to understand that this is a line of trees. I'm going to be bold and sort of just pull it up from here, and this is what I will do. Some of it will run into my reds, but you see what I'm doing is I'm actually getting rid of the strong lines in the front, those strong sponge lines that are not exactly, they don't really look like sponge layers are still peeking through, and I don't like it. Now I'm going to add a little bit with the turquoisey colors, the same thing, very gently with a very thin layer. I'm just sweeping it across, the canvas or paper here. And if you want to add a browny sort of color, something that looks like the ground here, then you can add a pinch of the red to your green. And that will create a muddy color. So you can always mix a muddy color. That's why I don't really recommend using, you know, any of those originally right away muddy colors, because mud is something that happens so easy. With the knife, I'm picking up the color and I'm adding it like that. Okay, a bit of the blue. Okay, I work with a knife, but this is a small knife. My favorite one is a pretty big one, and working on large canvases, but this is easier with an overhead camera. So you see the way it's going, and at this point I would say I would love to put some of these poppies, not too many, because otherwise it becomes one of those really cheesy poppy paintings. So I just pick it up with the tip of the knife. And then place it there. I would love to have a couple of more. Yeah, not too many. But one of those, you know, it's basically, you have color coded it. If you did a good job, which I'm sure you did, you have color coded the field using the red. So everybody will know these are poppies. One more thing I want to do is to add those teeny tiny white flowers that are always in, you know, in and amongst the poppy field. It's just to, you know, add a bit of a contrast, and also the reds will look more red, and it's, you know, especially if any of those darker backgrounds will have these smaller white patterns, then it's just, yeah, I think that would be the first layer. So if I lift it up for you to see, that those are very strong, heavy textured marks. You can see that. That is what you, if you can practice on a textured paper or even a canvas and try to get these lines or these patterns going. You see, when you run out, when you start smearing the paint with the palette knife and you run out of it, and it starts to be this patchy, very patchy pattern. The same thing here. This is what you are after for foliage, for random sky, patterns of skies peeking through, and also for any of the, you know, I was pulling the paint up here with the greens, with the various greens, and even a bit of the turquoisey green. And then I added the poppy patches, which is highly, highly textured. I can pick up a bit of my leftover red here, mix it up with some of my, with a bit of the white to make it lighter. And if I create this mauve color, and I can add it to the background there. What happens is that that same red, the same red pigment in a different color combination, but it is the same red pigment. It is now sort of communicating with the rest of the canvas. You have something here that is you can break up the thread also with a few bits that are sort of peeking into it. It's this light. There used to be, I don't know what type of flower, but there was this light mauve bits coming through. So you can break it up if it's too red, if it's too much of an overwhelm. You can add patterns on top of it, like this. But you want to have a few bits and, you know, some sort of there were these big stalks of everything else growing there. That's about it. So I have broken it up with a bit of that purple, just smearing it on, and then I added some of these more well-defined, like better defined stalks of flowers that were some sort of a grass that was blossoming in the midst of all that. So it's basically you are taking patterns, and now you see it's no longer such an eyesore, that red, because I have broken it up.